back, everybody. This is Music Talk. I'm Dave.
I'm Mike.
It's been a while. Been on
a couple weeks.
Yeah, been off for a couple weeks. I took a vacation, first time in 40 years, something like that. Anyway, but we're back this week, and we're gonna do the Neal Morse Band. His latest CD came out about 2 months ago, maybe a month ago. I think the first video came out 2 months ago.
Yeah,
something like that. It's called Innocence and Danger. It's got a pretty cool album cover, really. I mean, it's got, like doorway to a doorway to a doorway. And then you got, the masquerade phantom masks on there, light and dark for Innocence and Danger. Cool picture of the band back there on a desert dune or something.
Yeah.
You got all the lyrics in here. Comes with all the lyrics, black on white. Gotta love that. Because, Neal Morse ain't no spring chicken, so he probably has a hard time reading lyrics too.
Yeah, I think they're all
this picture here with the shark. That's cool.
Yeah.
Kid on there.
Nice one on the beach.
Yeah, right. Especially at feeding time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. It's like two different worlds, this CD, really. We'll break down who's in it band real quick. We got of course, Neal Morse. He's playing keys, guitars, vocals. You got Mike Portnoy, the infamous Mike Portnoy, who's on every record that comes out.
Prog Rock record. Yep.
He's on all kinds of stuff. So you got Portnoy. Then you got Randy George, who's playing bass. And you got a guy named Bill Hubauer on keys. And then a guy named Eric Gillette on guitars and vocals. And I looked up a little bit about him, and I'm going to dig into him more because I really like him. I like his vocal work on this album better than any of the other ones.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about the vocal work.
Yeah, me too. But he's an extremely good guitar player. I mean, I saw him on a couple of videos. He's playing like a 7-string Ibanez, I believe. But
yeah,
what a fantastic guitar player, man.
Yeah, one thing I was glad of though, when I noticed he was playing a 7-string, you don't really notice him using a lot of that drop tuning.
No,
on the record, and I was glad of that because I'm so tired of hearing that subsonic sound.
Right.
It just overtakes your whole system at times.
And he actually doesn't even go into that like way up high if he has the extra, high B on there, right?
Right.
So, or high A, I mean. So it's he just plays it like normal guitar. I mean, probably easier for him to hit like a drop D on there if he needs to. Anyway, right. Well, here's the CDs. This is the Innocence. You got the white mask, and then this is the Danger, the black mask. Danger. So going through it is two different CDs. One, of course, is called Innocence. And that CD basically is 8 shorter songs for them. And I say shorter songs because there's still some long songs. I mean, you got one of them that's 10 minutes long and one of them's 8 minutes long. I mean, it's not like these are still short songs. But for the Neal Morse Band, you do have a few that are 3 minutes, which was the guitar thing, and then a couple 4 minutes. But anyway, so we'll roll through them real quick. The first one, Do It All Again. I really love that song. It starts out a lot like Genesis' Dance on a Volcano. I actually thought it was, because it's so similar with the ding, 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 and all that mess. But then, as it goes, it gets to that chorus, and that reminds me a lot of Kansas.
Well, it had a real heavy Kansas influence through the whole theme.
Yep.
And the thing that I saw too, was Yes/Styx vocals sound like Bon Jovi and Styx. There was a lot of Bon Jovi-ish sounding vocal work going on.
Yeah. Well,
but
I mean,
it's not taken away from the music though. I mean, to me, they sounded better than Bon Jovi. But
there is some feels about that because they do have like some of that 80s keyboard stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing I put down here. Classic 70s prog with a good twist on the original type stuff, you know. I mean,
Right.
they put a good twist on it, and I liked it.
Yeah. And the first song, Do It All Again, I thought it was a good rocking tune. I'm not a fan of Neal's vocals. He's the guy that you hear starting out just about all the songs.
Right,
And
right,
I mean, I didn't even like his vocal work that much on the Transatlantic CD.
right.
I just don't not into his voice very much. I don't know. The music's fantastic.
Mhm.
The second song we get Bird on a Wire. Really like this one. This
And
reminded me a lot of like the Yes era with Trevor Rabin, like the 90125 sound,
right.
because you got that keyboard sound like Jeff Downes uses a lot, like he did in the 80s and the 90s. And um, I really loved the solo section of that where they did the trading off of the keys and the guitars. Reminded me a lot of what Yes was doing. And then you had that bass line in there that sounded a lot like Chris Squire.
Yeah, it had that good bass sound that Chris Squire got.
Mhm.
And I liked what Portnoy was doing. He actually accomplished to a certain point the sound that Bill Buford would get.
Yeah.
You know, although Buford wasn't part of the newer Yes, but
Right.
he had that
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 pop and
attack
snare.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And
he
all timing.
he didn't have the ring that Buford would get though.
Right.
You
That's
know.
true. Yeah. And then we get Your Place in the Sun, which is a really like a pop song. And I
It's a
felt like it
good R&B. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like it didn't really fit the album though, for me. There was a section in there where they were doing the chorus and the end of the solo that sounded like when Billy Joel used to do Beatles sounding songs. Like, because Billy Joel used to do this one thing in his earlier days that was because he was a Beatles fan too.
Oh yeah.
And he had songs that had this Beatles sound. And this song here, Your Place in the Sun, there's a couple points where the vocals sounded like that Beatles thing, but it
Yeah.
was more like Billy Joel doing the Beatles.
Well, I thought that, but then at the same time, you know, I mean, like what I've got right here, to me, it had a really good R&B vibe. I really liked the groove. Now,
Yeah.
again, it was
And
kind of
that
out of context of what was going on with the album, but it was also very Styx like.
it was. And well, the part I was talking about was let me see, Find Your Place in the Sun. It's kind of I can't even remember how it went, but it was something like Find Your Place in the Sun. Kind of reminded me a little bit of a Strawberry Fields type thing.
Mhm.
So, but this particular song, everybody sang lead on it except for the bass player. I don't think he didn't sing, but you had Portnoy doing a verse, you had Neal Morse doing a verse, and you had Bill doing a verse, and then Eric also did he was doing some of the verse and also the choruses. Now, one thing at this point of the album, and even another story to tell, we'll go ahead and talk about that one too, real quick. That I heard that before somewhere. That rhythm and that piano part with the walk up on the bass and guitar, but it kind of reminded me of a Foreigner song.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It had a Foreigner feel about it, and then it had this Kansas keyboard solo, But
yeah, you could go with that, but there was a lot of it that was very heavily influenced by Kansas. The only thing that you were missing at times was just the electric fiddle
yep,
going on,
which comes out on the second CD.
uh,
But this one here, to me, I love the guitar part and right before the bridge and then the keys and stuff. It had this really cool tone. But I don't know, man. There was this formula that they were doing on these songs at this point in the record that was like Neal Morse would start singing, and then Eric would come in on all the choruses, and he would do the chorus part, and it started to get like this pattern where Neal would start singing, and then Eric would do the chorus, and then Neal would go back, and then Eric would finish, and then a couple of these, they threw in other vocals as well. But I don't know, it was just it was weird because it seemed like they were following the same pattern on these songs. And at this point of the record, I'm starting to notice that everything's starting to flow the same way.
yeah. And well, see, that was one thing that I kept feeling over and over again. And that's why I went to the classic 70s, prog rock
Mm-hmm.
with a good twist,
Mm-hmm.
because it seemed like after a while, like you were saying, it was a formula that was happening.
Yeah.
And the formula I kept hearing was a yes / Sticks / Kansas /
Genesis.
yeah. I mean,
mean,
it was and it was well put together,
yeah.
and I loved the throwback feel of the
Right.
whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
mean,
it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything. It was unexpected though. And see, that's what I'm saying. It was like,
yeah.
okay, I've heard that before. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the formula side of it too.
And then another story to tell, really, it was like Toto almost. It's like, man, that is so Toto.
Right. Yeah.
But then coming out of another story to tell, and it goes right into the way it had to be. And if that song isn't Breathe from Pink Floyd.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. I've got that down there. I've got Pink Floyd down there. But going back to another story to tell, the first thing that popped out to me about that song was Supertramp.
Supertramp. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it had that Foreigner, Supertramp, Toto feel, those kind of like great bands with the pop feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because I mean, Foreigner was a great band. They were poppy, same with Supertramp. They were poppy. Toto, fabulous band, very poppy. But yeah, yeah, totally feel that, I just felt Foreigner when I heard it. I was like, man, that's totally Foreigner.
Yeah. And the way it had to be though, to get back to that song, again, yes. And Pink Floyd. I mean,
yeah, to me, it was almost a direct ripoff of Breathe.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was waiting for Gilmore to start singing.
Me too. And you know what's funny about it is this particular song is where I really heard Eric Gillette's voice, and he sounded a lot like Richard Marx to me.
Yes. I couldn't put my finger on it. Yeah.
It was Richard Marx, man. Yeah. I was like, wow, this guy could totally rip Richard Marx off if he wanted to.
Right.
But nothing wrong with that, because I think Richard Marx has a good voice, and I really like Eric Gillette's voice. Of all the singers in this band, he was the one I liked the best. When he was singing, I was more into the vocals than I was with Neal or even Portnoy.
Right.
Still, know. So I'm going to look in more to Eric Gillette, because I feel like he's probably got some good stuff out there on his own, which I'd like to check out more.
Yeah. I think he's more of a, honestly, because I read a little bit on him. I think he's more of a producer, engineer, which is also an excellent musician, which probably when he gets these bands in the studio, he hops in there and adds that little extra flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got 2 solo albums out, and then he's been on a lot of stuff with that Neal Morse has been involved in. And he was in another band. He did something, but he played drums and keys on it. He didn't even play guitar. So apparently he's a good drummer too, so I have to check that out. So then after we get through the Pink Floyd Breathe song, we get to what I was really happy to hear. We had an acoustic guitar guitar song, and I missed that in music. Yeah. I love the fact that they did that. Emergence is the name of it. Yep. And it totally reminds me of something Yes would do, right? Or Triumph, or anybody, because I love that people used to do acoustic guitar songs.
Well, I like the way they did it. I loved the feel of it. And there were a couple of times I started feeling like he was going to break into something similar to the Clap.
Yeah.
But then, when they segue out of Emergence into Not Afraid Part 1, it totally had that Yes type sweep. But then all of a sudden it sounded like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young vocally.
Well, you know who I thought of when I first heard the beginning vocal line? America.
Well, that too. I didn't think of them, but I've
totally. But the Crosby, Stills and Nash is similar to America. So
right. And and then it wound up going into a Sticks,
Kansas.
Yeah. Yes, Kansas,
Right. And it says Not Afraid Part 1, but I mean, I couldn't really link the words. I tried to go back and see if Afraid Part 1 and Afraid, or Not Afraid Part 1 and Not Afraid Part 2 were part of the same thing, but I
They
really couldn't.
similar. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't really place it back to each other, but I mean, that's okay too. So then we get to, well, Not Afraid, we just talked about, which is a good song. And then we get to Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Mhm.
And man, there's that one stupid keyboard sound that he used at the beginning of that. It's that whatever it was. Oh, I hated that so much.
ELP.
But I will say, I love the way it started. I love that intro. I had no idea it was going to be Bridge Over Troubled Water when I heard it. And then after that stupid keyboard part, it goes into the words to Bridge Over Troubled Water. And then you're like, oh, okay, it is Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Yeah.
And then, but there's a great guitar solo in it. I mean, that guitar solo screams, man.
At the end of it, it really started sounding like an anthem.
Yeah.
You know? And I can see them totally ending a show with it.
Yep.
You know?
And I mean, as far as it goes, Bridge Over Troubled Water, I mean, you don't really hear remakes of it much. I mean, other than solo people doing it like on an acoustic or something. But I mean, it was okay. It was good. I mean, I prefer if they left it off.
Well, yeah, I would have too. One thing I will say though, Portnoy came up with a good drum line in it.
Yeah.
And the bass and drum line was out of this world. But then when they come back around again to the vocal part and stuff, well, they just took it on straight then. And I wish they'd stuck to the drum line,
the different pattern. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm with you on that, because it started out so awesome and then it went right into Bridge Over Troubled Water. And then, so I'm with you. I wish they would have kind of kept it different. I would have liked it better. And it wasn't bad. It's just, I mean,
yeah. But then again, maybe, I can see where Portnoy would probably want to back out of doing stuff like that, because he doesn't want, he's already being drawn in 20 different directions at any given time to go do clinics and stuff like that,
Mhm.
And so the last thing he wants to do is to get on a record, on a song, and inadvertently just take over the song.
Yeah.
Because of the drum line,
Right.
So I can understand maybe pulling back, and it might have been his idea. It might have been producer's ideas or whatever. Or
I want to say it was Mike's, probably, because he does covers like this on all of his bands, and he's always doing covers on some sort. And this I wouldn't put it past him. It's probably something him and Neal talked about doing, and they're like, what, let's do it. I got this cool thing I want to do with it. Let's try it. And it turned out good. I mean, it definitely has that, same Kansas Genesis keyboard sounds in there, with the exception of that stupid sound that I hated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the ELP thing.
I totally get that now that you say it.
Emerson,
Yeah.
It's like, and it's all, and that's what this whole album is reminding me of, is tributes to all these bands that we grew up in the prog rock era that were pioneers of all this stuff.
Yep.
And also too, talking about doing something like Bridge Over Troubled Water, that takes me back to Vanilla Fudge doing Windmills of Your Mind. And I mean, that's unheard of, of a heavy metal band or hard rock or a hard prog band.
Right. And like I said, I mean,
song and putting it to hard rock,
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. And I totally don't think they did it injustice.
No,
I mean, it wasn't that they did a bad job of it. I mean, as far as I'd rather hear their version of Bridge Over Troubled Water probably than most, right? So,
right.
Because it had a lot of flavors in it I like,
a little bit of energy to it.
Yeah. It wasn't
sound like a funeral drudge.
Exactly. I mean, it had some, it had some cool stuff that lifted me up, and I mean, the message of the song is great, right? I mean, how can you deny the message of Bridge Over Troubled Water? So it's probably something that is perfect for right now, because we all need a bridge over troubled water, right? Yeah. So anyway, that wraps up the Innocence CD. So that was 8 songs, and now we're going to go into Danger. So Danger, is basically 2 songs.
Yep.
And this is where they start really progging out. I mean, you have all the prog elements on the first CD, but they've shortened them up into shorter songs, so where It's not like these epic 20-minute songs, even though some of them were 9 minutes.
Yeah. Well,
Still long.
the thing is too is they're not looking at having the heart of the songs gutted out if it does get some radio play or whatever.
Right, exactly.
They played shorter songs. There you go, a little bit more radio friendly, if radio exists anymore.
And yeah, true. And the three videos they have are Do It All Again, Bird on a Wire, and Your Place in the Sun, which, and there's one thing I wanted to say about which song was it? It was the Bird on a Wire. When you watch that video, it's funny because you can tell that it was all pieced in. Because at one point, Eric Gillette's playing the guitar and he's moving like this, and then he moves this way to the left a little. And when he does, the head of the guitar disappears. You can see where they've clipped all the pieces into one video.
Right.
So if you watch that video, Bird on a Wire, look closely, and you'll see when it's like the second verse, I think, and he starts going like this, and then he goes to the left, and the head of the guitar disappears, and it's like, that wasn't right. I had to go back a couple times, like, yeah, definitely did, because they probably pieced it together because the COVID junk or whatnot.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But anyway, so now we get to the second CD, Danger, and the first song is Not Afraid Part 2, which again, I don't know that it affiliates itself with Part 1, but it started out, the intro was kind of haunting. I really liked it. It was this really great, weird, haunting prog thing. And then it gets to the verse, and then Neal starts singing. And then the chorus, I think is a little bit lame on there. But then, that's after, a few minutes, then they get to this part where it goes, Mystery Man, and that was total Styx. Like, if that wasn't a Styx ripoff, that I've never, it sounded like something that would have been on Grand Illusion.
Yeah. I'm sure that if Kevin and what's his name had heard it, well, I'm sure they've heard it.
What are you talking about?
And I'm sure
Dennis DeYoung and Tommy Shaw.
Yeah. Tommy Shaw, yeah, Dennis DeYoung, not Kevin. I'm thinking of REO Speedwagon.
Yeah.
That's not far removed, but
yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I didn't even put a comment behind Not Afraid. I waited down to Beyond Years, and I've got triple exclamation marks behind Styx, and I've got Kansas right behind it.
And it definitely has a little bit of that Yes feel again. Totally Styx. I love the keyboard riff they were doing in there, though. It was really good music. I mean, the song is fantastic. It's just, again, it goes back to Neal Morse vocal work, and I just, I don't know. I just can't seem to get into it. So this is a 20-minute song. Goes through quite a few ups and downs. It'll take you for a ride. It starts out with the haunting, and it actually ends with a piano breakdown, and I really liked it, and it goes back to that haunting sound as the beginning. So for a prog song, it's got all the elements. 20 minutes, like I said. And then we get to song number 10, Beyond the Years. This is a 31-minute song.
Yep.
Right? 30, 31, something like that.
Yeah.
And it reminded me when it started out like something you would hear at a carnival a little bit. And then, or some kind of music from a Disney movie almost, right? But then it goes to this one part, and it's the same sound and almost the same pattern that Sting used on that song Russians. It's like, it's almost just like it. And I'm like, I paused it a couple times, like, because when I'm listening to these things, if I keep it playing, I can't remember where I've heard it before. But if I pause it and I think, I'm like, that's where it came from. That was totally Sting's Russians from that song. But anyway, it kind of was weird the way it started. And then when we get to the second part, with that first part, they call it Far From Home. That's your first suite. The second suite is the far that's always near. It's really small on here. I'm having a hard time.
I didn't get any breakdown on
the parts. Yeah.
Right.
But this is the part where it goes to has a really good chorus part. It's the one where he does the I'm always here for every tear, or whatever it is, or I will be here for your every tear. It's the
Right.
part where Eric sings that great chorus line. I really love that
Yeah.
chorus line there. Um, and then, they go to this little breakdown, and that is like a Kansas breakdown all the way. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it was a total Kansas breakdown. And I'm not saying this stuff because it's bad. I'm just saying that's totally where they're going in the direction with these songs, So then we get to the third part. The third section is called Kings and Queens and Bitter Things. It's the better late than never, the wisest sons and daughters, all that. That was remind me a lot of Rush. And then Marillion. It had a really big Marillion feel about it. And Neal Morse played with the bass player for Marillion on Transatlantic, so I'm sure he's got a lot from him also on there.
Right.
And then we get to number 4. It's called Islands in the Sun, which goes back to that Yes vocal line where there's all these things going on. You know what I mean? It kind of reminded me of Leave It a little bit because there was all these vocal parts going in and out. So, but it had it was still pretty cool. Then you get to the fifth part, which is Drifting Through the Years, and that was back into a Pink Floyd thing.
Yeah.
Reminded me a little bit of Animals on that. And you probably didn't. You're probably getting all these bands in your writing, but as each one of these songs breaks down, they go into a different part of a prog band. So then you get to number 6, and this was the instrumental. This is where they had the drum solo, the bass solo, and man, I really liked it. I love number 6. It's called Watercolor Sky. And I mean, Portnoy and Randy, man, I mean, they were tight. The bass and drums were tight on that. And it reminded me a lot of Rush there. And then we get to the end, and that's number 7, and it's called Worlds Away, which kind of goes back to the same as the beginning. And I don't know if you made it through that whole song, Mike, but at the end of it, they cut it off, just like Kansas did. Like they ran out of tape. And it makes me mad when they do that because you're in there and you're like all big and it just ends. And it's like, it's not even resolved. It hasn't resolved yet. And
Right.
Kansas did it on their album, and they just did it. So I don't know if this is some new thing people are trying to do, but I hate it. Don't do it anymore. Resolve it and end it.
The Beatles did that to a certain extent.
They always resolved it.
It wound up. It was like a magical on the end of Magical Mystery Tour or
Day in the Life.
Yeah, I believe so. And it stopped, and then all of a sudden,
right. But it had a resolve. It did. It wasn't like in the middle of something. It just it wound up, then it ended.
Right.
These, they're just like in the middle. They're not even through. They're not even like on beat 3 or something. It's just that's it. We're done recording. I don't care what's left. We have no more CD room.
Time to break out the smelling salts and the nitro pills, man.
Crazy.
They're going to leave you hanging. It's like,
and that's what they did, because you're getting up, you're feeling it, and it's climaxing, and then all of a sudden, it's like a bad date, But anyway, overall, the album, great production, great sound. I mean, they Neal Morse done it again, man, as far as sound goes. I mean, he's got every keyboard sound you could ever want. The guitars, fantastic. I know Neal plays a lot of guitar too. He's actually the one, I believe, that did the acoustic guitar solo.
I think he was too.
Yeah. So I loved Eric Gillette. This first time I've ever heard of him, and I'm going to dig into him more. I think what he did on this record was fabulous. I don't really see a lot of difference between this and Transatlantic.
No, I don't either, other than the fact that, honestly, I think they purposely set out to put these feelings into everybody that's listening to it, as far as Styx, yes, Pink Floyd,
right,
Supertramp, whatever, I mean, I think they did that on purpose. And when I first started listening to the album through the first 2 takes, I'm thinking to myself, do I really like Portnoy's sound?
Mhm.
But then once I realized what was going on, it was through this whole record, he was pretty much capturing Bill Buford's tonality type approach
Yeah.
to playing this kind of music, which he didn't do that on Transatlantic. On Transatlantic, he had more his sound going on.
True.
So there was definitely a different sound happening there, which is telling me, you know, and I'm looking at it from a drummer's throne point of view. When I'm playing music, I'm looking at, okay, who am I going to try to sound like on this song?
Yeah.
Who is it that's playing this song? And that's what you try to do. It's what you try to sound like. And a good example of that, I watched the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, I'm not sure what year this was, but they introduced Cat Stevens into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, the backup band was Paul Schaefer's band, you know, and had Anton Fig on drums.
Yeah.
And they showed a couple of close-ups on Anton. He had covered his whole kit with a blanket or with blankets on each drum to accomplish getting that dead
that he wanted.
tonal sound that they had on the Cat Stevens stuff, you know?
Right.
And
Well,
yeah, I mean,
I will say one thing about Portnoy's sound is it's fantastic on this record.
oh yeah.
I think there's a couple times when he may have done a little more than the song requires, but that's okay. I mean, it's Portnoy, you know? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I feel like he did a few things that were Neil Peartish because I think he wanted to throw some, you know,
a little tribute out. Yeah.
Right. And I felt that in a few parts there where him and Randy did a couple of parts where the bass and drums, and it was total like Getty Neil. And I liked it. I'm glad that they did that. Overall, I liked the record. I thought that there was way too many ahs in the background. I mean, there was a lot of I mean, I hate ahs all the time, and they were doing ahs on every song. You know, it's I hate that. But anyways, I thought that Neal Morse's voice, I just can't seem to grasp it, man. I mean, I know people probably like it, but it's just something about it, man. I'm just not a fan of his voice, you know. I think all of them as musicians were great. I mean, there's nobody that was a slouch on this record.
Right. Right.
The one thing I will give this over Transatlantic is there are some melodies that you can hang on. You can, you know, the first album for sure, there's stuff you can sing along with. I mean, you know, Bird on a Wire, Your Place in the Sun. These songs, they all have real familiar hooks that you can sing with, which Transatlantic didn't seem to have a lot for me.
Yeah.
You know, but this one is a lot more hooks. There's a lot more things you can hang on. So overall, I think it's a great record. If you like Neil's voice, you're going to love this record. If you're a prog fan, you're going to dig it a lot. I think it hits everything that you would want in a prog record. Production's great. So I'm going to end up giving this one an 8.4. I went a little higher probably because of the fact that the musicianship is so great on here.
Yeah.
I would have preferred a better vocal. I wish that John Anderson could have sang on here.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, yeah, you know, they would have like a tenfold better product if they had a lead singer.
I think so too.
A dedicated singer.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
Somebody that could orchestrate the background vocals. It's like, okay, take for example, yes, Topographical Ocean, the way they did the background vocals on that. It's like they were just blasting. They used them like horns or a string section, and then bam, they were cut off, and that was it.
Yep.
And,
and I agree with you too on this because that you have the musicians doing all the vocals. Sometimes you don't tend to have a vocal line.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when you have a vocalist, you can get that extra, you know, melody or something that you may not be hearing as the musician playing and singing.
Right.
It's kind of hard to explain, but you know what I mean.
Well,
you just don't have that other instrument there, right?
Well, look at Ian Gillan and look at Sammy Hagar doing Highway Star. Do you think they could pick up a guitar and play and sing those high notes at the same time?
Right, exactly. So I mean, you know, I agree with you 100%. If they had a dedicated singer, I think the product would bump up. Um, again, I say I give it an 8.4. I mean, what did you think of it?
I'm giving it a 7.5
7.5.
because yeah,
Okay.
because I thought at times when I was listening, and I did go back and listen again and again, but I just couldn't on some of these really long, intricate songs listen to the whole thing all at
Yeah.
one push.
Yep. And
It
I
would be
totally
great if
get that.
it would be great if I was driving down the road,
Right.
but see, I kept hearing all these different interjections. And to me, when you're doing that, you need to keep it shorter.
Mhm.
You can't have a concert piece
Right.
that lasts 18 minutes or so and or whatever and keep interjecting these different people in there, you know. I
Yeah.
mean,
It kind of
it
gets a little
cliche is, yeah, I don't know what the right word would be,
kind
you
of
know.
confusing a little, you know?
Yeah, it's like I thought I was listening to Yes, but no, now I'm hearing Kansas. But
Yeah, I
you
know.
know, I mean, so that's why I went 7.5. Musicianship wise, I'm all about 10 on that. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, these guys are masters, you know.
Yeah.
um
I would have, if they would have did a couple instrumentals on this record, I would have loved that. I mean,
right.
honestly, I mean, if they would have just did a couple songs without vocals, it would
Hmm.
have been a better record for me because
Yeah.
I just feel like the vocal work brings some of these songs down a little to me.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Bon Jovi references I was using, I believe, really believe it was Neal Morse's vocals that was giving me that vibe.
It could be. I know Eric Gillette had the more Richard Marx sound.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they also had Bill sing a little bit of lead, and you can always tell Portnoy's voice, you know,
Yeah.
but he's original. So
Yeah. Yeah, Bill, I liked his voice. And
I
like,
think Eric Gillette definitely shined vocal wise on this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when they were harmonizing, it was great. They all sounded great together, especially
Right.
really getting those 4-part harmonies happening, you
Which is
know.
kind of weird because when they all sing lead, they sound similar. But then when they did the vocals, it was like all over. The backup vocals or harmony vocals, it was all over. So I don't know how they could do that. I don't know. Their voices were so similar. But then,
Yeah.
you know, like you said, harmony was great. But anyways, all right, well, we'll wrap it up. So that was
Yeah.
Neal Morse band, Innocence and Danger. Looks like this. Great album cover. Great
Yeah.
musicians, no doubt about it. If you're into prog, just remember you're gonna have to set yourself down for about 2 hours to indulge in it. Because it's not a record that you can come in and out of. You really need to just sit down and put the headphones on or however you want to do it and just let it all flow through your brain. But you're going to need to take the time out to do it,
Yeah.
especially Danger album. The Danger
Oh,
album is 2 long songs. So you can't, you know, just throw that on and, you know, party with it. So,
yeah. One thing I'm going to point out to anybody that's listening to this to our reviews and stuff, um, you've got to do yourself a favor at times and I don't know, go out to your local audio store or something and take one of your favorite, you know, and take this album, for example, and put it on a full-fledged audio file system
yeah.
and listen to what they're covering.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, on the average system, you're missing 50% of the sound.
On this particular CD, the spectrum is way out there.
Yeah.
I mean, because
And
they're hitting everything on this record.
yeah.
So yeah, I agree. You can't just like do an MP3 with earbuds.
No,
You gotta have something that you can feel it. You
no,
know.
you got to have some spatial happening there. And
Mhm.
you got to have that, let that high end breathe and let that low end just make your foot pat, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hit you in the gut. But
All right. Well, we'll end it on that. Neal Morse band, Innocence and Danger. Go check it out. We're happy to be back. We took a couple weeks off, and it's fun to sit back down in the chair here and give our opinions, even though most people don't like our opinions.
it said so in the comments.
Yeah, just look at some of the comments, you know. So anyway, all right. Well, until next time, you guys stay safe.
And Peace out and listen to the music.